move on to our special guest, Dr. Nonyerem. Thank you so much for being patient. So, like we mentioned earlier, he's an presidential aspirant on the ADC platform. So, he's here as an independent witness as to what happened in that 2023 general election. He was kind enough to send out a video, a warning to us before the election that they need to shut down that presidential campaign because nothing will change for our people. And this is the thing that we talk about. When our people look out for our people, because we see other people there, how they are up there in the food chain. We think they're representing us. Our brother came out even when it was not convenient. I know he got a lot of, backlash about this, but he came out to say that this election is not going to work, that we need to adopt the Nina strategy for transition to self-determination. And we can see that he's been vindicated, because the election was sham. Nothing came out of it. So please, welcome, sir. Welcome so much. So what made you conclude that another general election under this constitution is not the way to go, especially looking at the disastrous outcome of that electoral voyage? Please, what can you tell Nigerians at this point in time?
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this platform to reach probably people that I wouldn't have been able to have access to. Like you said, first of all, I'm not a member of the executive team of NINAS, but I'm a Nigerian. And NINAS speak for me as a Nigerian. I'm a leader, and to lead people, you have to lead people with a light, not blindfolded. And I think that is very, very important. Nina's, I think, let me just start by saying that what dragged me into politics, I'm not a politician, I'm an academic, I'm not a politician. But what brought me into politics was the sight of many Africans drowning while crossing into Europe. And I listened to various commentaries from highly placed individuals in Europe, European governments, and also listened to politicians from Nigeria and Africa. And what I observed immediately was that the politicians in Africa were silent. Nobody cared about how many people died. Nobody cared about nationalities. Even while Europeans themselves were crying over the dead bodies that littered the shores of Italy and a number of other places, our governments were silent. Our presidents were silent. Our lawmakers made no attempt at all, even to retrieve the body and to give them a befitting burial. So I made that decision on the belief that leadership was the issue. Unfortunately, as time progressed, and I came across various literature from Ninas, I began to, dive deeper into it. And the first thing I did was to assure myself that Ninas is not on the same platform as secessionist groups. I'm not saying that people do not have the right, of self-determination. But self-determination must be conducted legally. It must follow a due process. And so once I was convinced that Nina's was on a different platform, intellectually supported, and when I looked at the charisma of the secretary himself, and being a very prominent lawyer, very intelligent, I think I studied him over time. I made a decision that I was going to pay a little more, get a little more closer and get more information. And I think the area that struck me very, very hard was the emphasis on the Constitution
Mhm.
as being the catalyst of all the evils we see in Nigeria today. I could remember that uh, there was a quote I saw that captured my attention from Tony. I think he described the Constitution as Constitution of death.
Mm.
Excuse me. And so,
Please continue to help us to share, like, and subscribe. Um,
It's a constitution of debt. I love that quote. So please, we should even hashtag that one, because when you are put in a pressure cooker for injustice, you know you will never make any progress. So we give our brother a few minutes to take care of an urgent matter, and then he will come back on. So as usual, continue to help us to share, hit that like button. It really does work continuously. If you can hit that button, you know they do not want our people to get information that they need. That knowledge is power, but we keep reminding you guys that it's going to be offline. What we are doing is eventually is actually offline. This is just to reach the people that are not on ground. So thank you for joining us today on this special program. Thank you so much. Continue to share. I hope you have your papers and you're writing down important information, because we will conclude this journey. We will conclude this journey. The good thing about what we're doing is that we are not relenting. We are persistent. Anytime you come around, we're still saying the same thing. So that means that we are stamped in the truth. So if you want to join us, please, this is the good time. Christmas is around the corner. There is no need for us to continue to suffer. There is no need for us to continue to be in the condition that we find ourselves. So I think my brother is back. So we'll let him take over.
okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My apologies. I mean, technology is one of those silly things. Just a phone call that came in disrupted every damn thing. All right. So the point I was making before the disruption was that uh, Tony is very good at communicating to people, those who wish to listen. I think that's very important. Very in very clear terms. And when he described the Constitution as the Constitution of death, I read the interpretation and understood that. When he described the Constitution as the Constitution that promotes master-servant relationship, I have lived over many years and I have seen what is going on in Nigeria, the level of discrimination, the kind of injustice that is in that country. And when he described it as retrogressive, particularly when it comes to the exclusive list, and I heard him loud and clear. And immediately I began to put all these things together. And the message was very clear. You're beginning to look at about 3 previous electoral cycles. And at each stage, you will expect something better. It doesn't happen. In fact, if you look at the history of administrative changes in Nigeria, what you realize that any incoming administration becomes worse than the one it replaced. And so this cycle has been there over time. And it was clear to me, that something has to be, has to be done. I think that was where I made up my mind and said, look, there's going to be, this is going to be a complete wastage of time. Should I continue, my candidacy? I think finally, one other thing that made me to make that decision was that I've looked over time, and I've realized that in Nigerian politics, it's not about the quality that you bring in. No, not at all. It's about whether the cabals recognize you as a member of theirs or somebody they can use. That's very important. And secondly, you must have billions stolen to waste, because you can never, nobody can ever waste even $100 that he or she worked hard on. So you must have billions that you have accumulated over time, or your sponsors who may have also stolen part of that money from somewhere and are prepared to waste it. And I don't have that kind of money to come and waste. And the other thing is that no matter how capable, I realize, no matter how capable you are, and no matter the will of the people who are electing you, Nigeria has become a state in which the executives who eventually emerge as the leaders are not, come into existence by selection. To be honest, I must tell you, as someone was telling me a couple of days ago, he said that Obi shouldn't waste his time, that 2027 or whatever it is, which is the next election, that the next leader has already been selected. To be honest, so how can you be in a system that continues to feed us with failure, endless failure? How can you continue to support that? It doesn't make sense at all. And so I think I made that decision that let me lead by example. And I was hoping that other politicians will follow, because this is not a matter of secession. This is not a matter of Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa or what. This is about Nigeria. This is about us. There is one part of Nigerian constitution, in fact, this crazy constitution 1999, that I keep reading from Tony's articles. I think it's section 14A. It says clearly that sovereignty belongs to the people from whom government, through this constitution, derive all its powers and authority. So that tells me then that anybody who writes a constitution and starts the preamble by saying that we, the people, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible and indissoluble nation, do hereby make, enact, and give unto ourselves the following constitution, is a lie. So in other words, the constitution, I mean, through Tony and Nina's, I came to realize that our constitution lied from beginning to the end. And so when you have a document that is crafted based on lies, the implementation is also based on lies. It's not surprising that today the kind of politicians we see, we cannot measure them by their intellectual capabilities or their patriotism. It is simply because they were selected by a cabal to execute the interests of cabals. And I don't want to be part of it. I hope that answers the question. My apologies, because technology must have, has extended this a little bit beyond what I intended initially. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that outstanding explanation. And we thank you so much. This is what a father would do for his children, to look out for the children, understand, and that good things has to be in place, or have to be in place for the children to have a sustainable future. So we thank you for that. Like you said, we can never move forward because they have already elected those waiting for 2027 for you to get into another car without engine, so you can go and have another horrible accident. This is how it begins. That we're saying that sovereignty belongs to the people. Let's do the right thing, and then we'll move on with election. Let's do the right things first, and then we'll move on to election.